Welcome to What's Important to You, the podcast where we explore purpose, passion, and the moments that truly matter. I'm James Dean, and each week I sit down with inspiring guests to uncover what drives them, inspires them, and what's important to them. What if leadership wasn't just about managing performance, but about navigating the messy, emotional, and high-stakes side of people? In today's conversation, my guest explores what it takes to create cultures that retain great employees, handle tough conversations with empathy, and lead with authenticity and courage. It's about protecting both your business and your people. Today, we find out what's important to Rabia Mirza. Hi, Rabia. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, James Dean. You sound like a movie star.
Yeah, it's not the first time I've heard it. Absolutely comes with the territory.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We're gonna get straight into it, Rabia, with the first question, which is, what's important to you?
Yeah, I really like this question, and it's not, what I expected to be asked straight away. Obviously, I had to listen to some of your wonderful podcasts, and that's, you dive straight in. So it was good to, so for me, I find the most important thing for me is to have my own voice, which is about having freedom to speak in what I believe in. And that's what I try to do with my clients in the HR space and in the coaching space as well. But I think it's so important. And like with many stories, many people, it comes from, childhood and upbringing and all those experiences where maybe, things weren't exactly the way that we liked. So I think from that, that desire to speak my voice and have that freedom is so important to me.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective on it, because I've had a few people say that word freedom a few times, but not necessarily in the way you've put it, in the sense of having your own voice. It's a really different sort of slight sort of nuance or take on it. So when you say about having your own voice, what does that mean when you say I want to be able to speak my own voice?
So I like to close my eyes when I'm thinking. So it's really about speaking from the heart and genuinely what I feel about the situation on hand. And it's something that comes over time and with practice and experiences in life, and having that confidence and security in yourself to be comfortable in saying what you feel.
Yeah, absolutely.
That takes time, yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's definitely that sort of feeling one thing or thinking one thing, having that, the ability, and then feeling comfortable to say it out loud is a very different thing, isn't it? It's a very different experience, because it's one thing I think I, over the years, I suppose, struggled with, but kind of come to terms with it, thinking, well, I'm doing something that I fundamentally disagree with in some capacity, and you still keep doing it. You're like, this is pure madness in some ways. So it takes a bit of, I don't know if it's the right word is courage. I don't know if it's environment. They say it does take time. I suppose, was there a point where you think, actually, I'm now in a place where I can say it the way I want to say it?
I suppose I'm in my business 3 years, and that was an intentional act.
Yeah.
It was an intentional act where I decided to start my own business. And part of the reason was because I felt I couldn't speak my voice in industry. So that was the reason. I was like, right, I am comfortable in what I do in my line of profession, which is in HR and coaching. And I genuinely believe that I bring a difference to, organizations that want a difference. They want to elevate their employees and elevate their business, so if that's not what's going to happen, then I need to start my own thing, because I genuinely believe in it. So now the way I practice that in my business is to help organizations and be very direct and very honest in what's needed. HR sometimes can be seen as a disruption or an obstacle in operations of running of the business, but yet they want it, that organizations want it. So there's a clash there between what the organization wants versus what they're willing to put up with. So, I mean, fortunately for me, I prefer not to work with organizations like that. So my, clients would be companies that can understand what I'm saying, which is like, okay, this function of HR is a business function. It's about business first. It's about people, and let's merge the two and get the best for both sides.
Yeah.
So So that, I think that really, the shift into having my own business, that was kind of a very strong pivoting point. And you learn so much about yourself having your own business.
Sure.
Like the professional side, the profession, whatever your profession is, HR, coaching, whatever, finance. When you start your own business, that's almost like the least of your worries. Client acquisition, that's the biggest one. So there's a lot of skills that you have to develop in yourself and learn a lot of new skills, and having that belief in yourself that you can get through this no matter what, So it's that constant kind of resilience, So there's a lot of resilience that I've built up since I've had my own business. I've had to adapt and change some of my style, but be more genuine in what I'm saying.
Yeah.
In that transition, I don't know if that's a word, but I suppose I've let my hair go natural. One of those people that have had grey hair since I was 13, 1-3.
Yeah.
It's not genetic, nothing like that. My parents, both went grey in their 40s. So I didn't get it from my genetics. So I just had it since I was 13, and I've been coloring it since I was 26, like to cover my grey. And then I just got to a point about a year ago, coming up to a year, where I was just like, right, I'm done.
Yeah.
I don't want to color my hair, and people that will resonate, and it's okay. It's just a lot less pain.
Yeah.
I don't have to get my hair colored every 4 to 6 weeks, so there's less hassle. So it's part of that freedom and being able to speak my voice, and not kind of following into this this realm of let's follow the beauty, the societal standards. Obviously I wear makeup and I like bits and pieces, so it's not like I'm a complete outlier to society, but I think I need to have that freedom where I can be myself and do things
100%.
in a way that are comfortable for me, so I can be at peace with myself.
Yeah, I love that. I love the two almost what seem to be kind of quite far apart in that sort of spectrum of the sense of going into your own business. So one, what I was hearing there, going into sort of setting up your own sort of, would I be right calling it HR consultancy? Would that be kind of the right sort of framework for it?
Yeah, outsourced HR consultant.
Okay,
yeah.
Great. So I've got to go to that more in a sense, but like the fact that you wanted to be able to bring your own, what you wanted to be able to say in that position versus what someone above you is, what you can say or can't say in that part of the world. No, I want to do it this way. So that's one reason for kind of going into business, what I'm hearing. But then deciding not to dye your hair seems so far away from that. Do you know what I mean? But in some sense, they're one and the same, because it's kind of like, because it's all about action, and in a sense of the way that, but though, as you say, just to be comfortable who I am. And it's like, if I've got this, if this is just me, then you're comfortable with it. So I think they're actually closer than one might think initially, because it's the same thing. It's like, no, this is how I want to be, present, etc. So I think it's a really, and it's funny because we're doing this on video for people who aren't watching. It's one of the things it didn't even enter my mind, in a sense, the fact that you have grey hair. It's kind of like, it's just how you look.
Well, I suppose, you haven't seen me without the other
no,
yes.
Exactly. So it's kind of like, so it is, but it's interesting how we, I think people can kind of take those things in a sense of trying to present it, and because in some ways you're trying to appeal to someone else's expectation, but you have no idea what their expectations are. the fact that you turn up and you have I don't know, dark hair versus grey hair, whatever you dye, is that going to make any difference in the impact that you might present with the content or the information or the skills that you have? Probably not. And if someone is judging you on the basis of your hair color, then maybe they're not the client for you as well. You know what I mean?
That's what I was saying. Then there is some schools of thought around that as well, like on how you like the looks and the hair and the age and all that stuff that comes into play, and you know so you haven't seen me with this new hair, but
Yeah,
I've seen my old very long hair
sure.
and darks, and then I had a mixture, so I was like, right, I'll just cut it so that it's all one color, which is the natural color. But it's about having that voice and freedom to be myself in
Yeah,
business, in my work, and then I suppose in my hair. I'm
yeah.
comfortable with that as well. So I mean, it wasn't an easy transition in this day and age, especially for a woman, especially
Mm,
for a woman in her mid 40s, to kind of just say, right, I'm going to potentially take a chance of looking older in today's society. I don't
sure.
look older, I don't think. I'm comfortable, with my hair, but it's just that it's not an easy move. It wasn't an easy
Sure.
decision,
Yeah.
especially in this day and age. Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
but it is related, I suppose. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I do think your hair looks lovely. I think it's so just as a general comment, I think it really does. I want to
Thanks.
go back now to, because I think that they're both ready. But when you come back to say setting up the own business in the sort of in that HR world, and you say part of it was to have this part of your own voice. What was it that you wanted to be able to say or do in that space that you kind of felt you had restriction on before?
So I suppose first, just want to clarify that it's not
Mm,
just what I want to say. I'm cognizant of organizational needs, so it's just
yes.
having those honest conversations to say, okay, this is what you can do to change this situation, for example,
Mm,
and not being able to hold back. So it's like when I'm in deep conversations, consultations, talking to clients, we have very honest conversations. So I actually start with that and say, let's have honest conversations because I'm here to help you.
yes.
So we're on the same side, even though I'm an outsider, but I'm a consultant, but I'm here to help you. So let's have honest conversations. Like I provide outsourced HR consulting services, but I specialize in helping organizations to reduce high employee
Okay.
turnover. And typically, high turnover is because on the surface level, there is it's about money and benefits. They're getting better benefits and money elsewhere, so that's why people leave. So that's surface level, but really deep down, it's about leadership, it's about culture, and it's about um, poor HR processes in the organization, and maybe even beyond the HR processes. So those are the kind of three things that cause an organization to have high employee turnover, which is very costly for organizations.
Mm,
And when you spell it out to them, when you spell out the cost, it's between 20% to 200% of an employee. When somebody leaves, multiply that by the salary, 20% to
wow.
200%. So it's very costly if
Mm,
one employee leaves. And it's typically, some industries are more prone to high employee turnover. And then you have other organizations that would have one or two departments that would have those
mm,
problematic areas. And then it's usually linking back to the manager in that department, but that's usually coming back to the senior leadership team, maybe who are not giving them the freedom voice, or it's just a bad match, or it's not a good match anymore. They've been there
yeah.
too long and they're not willing to, so there's a lot of different things. So it's just having those honest conversations. You know, you've got high employee turnover, it's costly, it's a pain. You've got people coming in and out all the time. It's affecting your existing employees. There's a gossip culture, there's a toxic culture. These are all the things that you're seeing.
Mm,
So let's talk real.
yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
talk real and let's do something about it. And that's what I mean by,
Yes.
yeah.
So it's in some ways as well, it's not necessarily just you having that sort of freedom of voice. It's enabling the company as well, having that two-way thing that and this is my own choice. So it's like, let's cut the bullshit type thing. Let's just
Yes.
let's get into the real detail of versus the sort of sometimes the facade of we're just having a lovely chat. You know what I mean? Let's get it because it's the same way, I suppose, because you say you do coaching as well as it's you've got to be able to work with someone who's willing to actually change. There has to be
Yes.
that
Yeah.
willingness from whether it be from a small or whatever size company, they're going to actually implement the things that you work through and find and try and make it better.
Yeah. And you know this from being a coach as well, right? Yeah. The desire has to be there to an extent. I think a lot of organizations are there's a lack of awareness. There's definitely denial. So obviously those people are not ready yet, I would say.
Yeah.
Until, they see the effects of even the cost. Businesses exist typically to make money and make more money or to reduce their costs, and then make a difference to the world through their services. That's the three key reasons. Is even non-profit charity organizations, they still have to make a certain amount of income. So they're not maybe there to make a profit, but they're still there in business they need money to survive, right, in the business. So yeah, there has to be a realization, a level of realization, for my clients. Yeah.
And is there a particular industry you work with, or a particular size company, or is it just trying to find which one fits for yourself the best?
It's really any organization that has high turnover, high employee turnover. And it's I suppose in business, you're also in business, and it's one of those things, right? What's your avatar, and what's your niche, and what size is the organization, and all this kind of stuff, which I've gone through with my marketing team, and it's that's I was like, there's no size that fits all for this. You know what I mean? It's just organizations that have high turnover, and they want to do something about it.
Yeah. Because what about you? This is the next question. Because which have you found working in this space with those companies that have that higher turnover, are the sort of challenges they face or the problems, the reasons, I suppose, they're having that high turnover, are they kind of across the board, regardless of industry and regardless of company?
Some industries are more prone to it.
Okay.
Yeah. So the likes of hospitality are very prone to high turnover.
Yeah.
But they can definitely improve on that as well. So they can reduce their costs and have people stay for longer. So there are ways to make it better. Yeah. And then other organizations would have one or two departments that have high turnover. So it's constant turning. And I've experienced in both. And it's there's usually those three factors that I talked about, processes, culture, and leadership.
Yeah. And then when because I've from my previous sort of career within financial services, there's the amount of sort of obviously various different sort of either programs or initiatives that the company might put in and things like that to try and I don't know if it's to empower employees, whatever the sort of reasoning for it. Is it when you're working with an organization, is it just senior management? Is it middle? Is it across the board? What's this? I'm really interested from your perspective, how you go in and approach with a client.
Mm-hmm. Well, it starts from the top. Everything starts from the top. So it's the idea has to be bought in at the top level. So the business owners, the senior executive team, and then it trickles down. So every situation is kind of unique in the sense of what happens in an organization, but you have to get that buy-in from the top. And if they genuinely want to make a difference, and that's when I suppose we solidify that we're going to work together, is when they genuinely want to make a difference. And then it's about looking at the whole organization from top to bottom, in terms of the org chart and people, and seeing, what is happening here, and trying to get perspective on that. And from that, okay, here's what I see. are the issue. Here are the themes that are coming up. Here are the positives, here are the negatives, here are the je ne sais quoi, right? So
Yeah.
let's dig a little bit deeper on what that is. There are statistics that tell us that senior leadership team only know 11% of what's actually going on at frontline
Wow.
in an organization. So that's a massive divide,
Yeah.
So, sure, we're fine. Everything's grand. Not really. When you get to it, it's not really the case. So my work, initially, there's, I suppose, an assessment or an audit. And then from that, okay, here's what we can do. And then for some organizations, they want me to walk them through that. So it takes time. It's not an overnight solution.
Sure.
And there are genuine, and I think having somebody from the outside makes a real difference.
Yeah.
Because typically there's personality clashes within the organization. And if culture and leadership are the issues, then having somebody from the outside makes a big difference. And keeping things, confidential, like from an employee's perspective when they're speaking to me and my team, that they're very comfortable in having those anonymous conversations, but being honest at the same time that we're trying to help the organization here. So we won't reveal your name, but we're looking for themes here. That's the essence.
Hi, James here. If you've been watching and thinking, I would like to make a change, but not sure where to start, that's where I can help. My 12-week coaching program will enable you to reconnect with what matters most and move forward with clarity and confidence. If that sounds like you, head over to jamesdeancoach.com. Now let's get back to the episode. Yeah, absolutely. And you've been working in HR for a number of years now. So, and then
over 2 decades,
yeah, exactly. So I'm interested, it's a slight tangent question. And obviously you're now out on there on your own, in your own business. Have you seen a change or transition, is the word again, of what the employee life is now like? If you were to believe in the sense of the headlines, in the sense of the current millennials, Gen Zers, all these sorts of sort of, archetypes of whatever work is coming in. Has there been a change in what's expected now from an employee or a company?
Yeah, if we're speaking about the current, is it Gen
Z? It's probably the most youngest.
Z,
yeah,
right? Gen Z, and then the next generation that's coming as well. There is a difference. Yeah, there's definitely a sense of let's make a difference straight away to this world.
Okay.
If I can't make a difference, then I'm out. So there's that kind of urgency and maybe a lack of self-awareness. If I'm being very honest, I think and it's the same with a lot of people, right? I mean, when you're starting out in your career, you're not really that self-aware. So, but I think it's at a different level without disrespecting the younger generation. But I think it's at a different level, and I think in this day and age, social media and phones and too many distractions do not help people to understand who they really are.
Yeah.
I genuinely believe that, and phones are great and everything, but really, the real purpose of the phone, which is to call somebody, is kind of lost.
Yeah. Oh, no,
and
absolutely.
That causes distraction.
Yeah, I mean, it's if anything, like it's ironic that it's still called a phone in some sort of capacity now. It's kind of that will be the name will change at some point. But I think it's kind of, when I was thinking about it, when you're just saying there, a sense of the sort of the next the Gen Z, and then we will have, I think it's Gen Alpha is the next one that'll come along in sort of
okay.
10 years.
That's my niece.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But in some way, because of the amount of obviously access to information and through technology, whichever capacity that is, and through the access to being able to listen, hear, and watch people, and if part of what we're trying to do as people is to empower and tell people they can, go after whatever it is they want, there is still that thing, as you say, of someone who's they're sort of 20 to 25 out of school, university, that sort of age group, they might have this supreme confidence, but you're right. In some ways, at 20, 25, do you really know who you are? Probably not, because you're
No.
only
You think you do,
retrospective.
but you don't.
Absolutely, 100%. And that's as someone in the, like myself in my 40s now, thinking, Jesus,
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't really know I did, but I didn't. So it's interesting in the sense of that willingness to just be in the moment, just try stuff, as opposed to thinking I've got to come here in and believe what I'm going to just transform everything. And it's
Change
kind
the
of like,
world. Yes, yes,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. I think the expectations are
yes,
much, it's a quicker turnaround. It's like convenience food, but it's like
sure,
convenience career progression. Convenience career
yes.
progression. I'm going to tag that.
That's
I'm going to trademark
absolute.
that.
Yeah, it is. That's a really good way of you're thinking about convenience career progression. Because it is that
Yes,
sort
yeah.
of
I'm
instantaneous.
trademarking that. Don't steal that, James.
Yeah, I won't. I'll make sure it's noted. And anyone who cites it, they have to cite this episode as
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
Rabia.
yeah, yeah.
But it's a really interesting, because my sort of the assumption, I suppose, out of, and I think it's probably a wrongful assumption as well, of always put out there of younger people, is that, lazy, not wanting to do this, all this, triggered and all that. I think it's all nonsense as well, personally, just because of viral video that could probably set up as well. But I get that part of that. They're just looking for it. If they're almost over keen to make their mark in some ways. And it's kind of like, yeah, that's great, but we've got someone who's been here 10 years, and they're probably going to be the person that's going to be, they've got a bit more experience, etc., than yourself. Interesting. Going back to then you go through the company and you do that sort of top down through the whole organization of what you're trying to find. One of the words you mentioned there a few times was culture. And I find that's a really interesting space, especially in the workplace. Before I sort of go into that in more detail, what do you think is your definition or explanation of culture in the workplace?
Mm. Culture is it's really, the habits and behaviors of a group.
Yeah.
That's what culture is. It's group habit, group behavior.
100%.
And that, I think, in any organization changes over time.
Yep.
It can be like, it can start like great, and then it evolves because people in and out. So that changes it. And it can get to a stage where it's very toxic, where people are not allowed to be themselves, where there's usually one or two strong personalities, not necessarily at the very top, not necessarily, but typically, but not necessarily, that can kind of be, a stagnant, that can be a big obstacle, I suppose, for an organization. But because they have a lot of power in the organization, probably from bringing in revenue, they're strong at generating revenue for the organization. So the organization, or the senior management, tend to put up with that because there's money coming in. So there's a lot of factors. But yeah, back to culture is group habits, group behaviors, group attitudes, and they vary. I suppose there's not much difference in the way we have culture in different cities, in different countries. So an organization, regardless of its size, has that as well.
Yeah. No, I love the way you describe that, because I was thinking about this recently as well. And it is, and it's like that sort of, it's almost as well as those automatic behaviors. It's like they're kind of like the way people will, it's almost, so it's kind of like that sort of, it's what is at worst, and that negative sort of culture, as you say, because of one or two people, those strong characters. And if you're coming in as someone, especially we're talking about high turnover, if you're coming in someone as new into an organization, and you kind of try and set out the way to be yourself, or whichever way you present yourself, and one of those strong characters kind of pushes back on that, again, to be that acceptance of belonging and thinking, you automatically will change your behaviors to fit in with the crowd, because so that's, so you might be, as you say, you repress, or you just go along with a way of being because, well, actually, I want to keep the job, or I want to stay in. So I think when I've experienced those sorts of things, we're going to work on culture within the organization. It's like it really is an active thing, but you say it can just come from one or two people. Is it as drastic in a sense of your suggestions that you were saying, well, you actually need to remove someone?
I didn't say you need to remove someone.
Yeah.
But I think there needs to be a shift in the behavior of that person. Like if that person is, key to the organization in terms of bringing in revenue, then the organizations, the business owners, the people at the top, they need to decide on what they want to do. So it's looking at, if we really want to keep this person, then we have to be very honest with them and help them.
Yeah.
And that's through getting a person from the outside, typically a coach who's very well versed in dealing with difficult, challenging personalities, and really getting to the root of it, and that's, I do that as well. And you need somebody from the outside to help and have that. The confidentiality has to be there, because otherwise the person's not going to open up, and the organization has to be ready for what may come out of it, right? There are going to be frustrations. There are going to be frustrations with people in the organization. They could be towards you, so you need to be ready for that as well. So a lot can come out of it, but.
Yeah, so because what you said earlier was the stat you said that at the senior level they only understand 11% of what's going on at ground level. So they're going to get a lot of information that's potentially going to surprise them. Or so how did I'm very interested in the sense of when you present all the data back up to the top from, say, the people who are turning over and that, what is their general reaction when you sort of give them this information back?
For some, it would be a complete shock. And then for some, I could see that, but they didn't speak up about it, or maybe they spoke up about it in the past, but it wasn't that big a deal at the time, or it wasn't listened to. So you get mixed reactions, people that would sense that, are probably more observant of people. So they probably have more emotional intelligence and perhaps better interpersonal skills. Whereas it's a complete shock. It could be, maybe the emotional intelligence isn't that high. There's we can't be good at everything. You know what I mean? We're good at some things, and sometimes you're just too busy. You don't have the time to get to know the people. So that could be another reason as well. For that divide or the gap, is because you're physically not there.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I suppose the element now of the way we're doing this online as well, that the change in working environment in sense of work from home, remote working. Obviously, there's global companies as well, so that's obviously has a change on the working environment in sense of working with remote based employees as well. Is that something you would work with organizations as well?
Well, I think most organizations, have a hybrid or, a fraction of their employees as remote employees. Some organizations, actually, a lot of their employees are remote, particularly the tech industry. They would have a lot of people that are not in Ireland. And it's looking at geographical, cultural differences as well that come into play. So that's something that comes up where, you have a director who is managing different sites, different locations in different countries, but using the same skill sets as they were used to in Ireland and the UK. And now, the company has decided to outsource or offshore a part of their services, and managing that team in a different country with a different culture, different norms, different behaviors. And it's typically a company that's, taken on recently in the last couple of years. So that can shake things up. So what the way you lead here in Ireland and the UK in this organization might be very different to how you're going to interact. So that does come up, yeah. There are different ways of doing it, but for other companies that have people working remotely or hybrid, you just have to get people involved and build that sense of community online, because you might not have the option. Great if you can get them to meet a couple of times a year in person, if you can afford that. If your budget allows that in an organization, you should do something to mark the occasion. Otherwise, lots of online community, and something that's not overly work related. It's not there to have a discussion about the metrics and what's going on this week, what's going on next week. It's just having a bit of fun, because sometimes you need to let loose. And so again, looking at what works for that particular organization, because one size doesn't fit all in terms of what people like to do.
Yeah, absolutely. That actually kind of leads me into where I wanted to go next, actually, because there's obviously an element of where you're coming in to help try and fix an organization where they say, particularly like high turnover was when you talked about. It's obviously retaining people, keeping the company. And there's the external sort of view of HR, as you said, it is the sort of a function. It does come across as that sort of functionality of a part of a business. From an outsider, of someone who's never worked in HR. And then with this, but then there's there's the people side of it as well, as you say. And one of the things you just said there is like building community. We've talked about building culture, fun, all that sort of stuff. So when you're going in for yourself, is it purely looking at as you said, the metrics and the data and these sorts of what we need to implement, or are you creating or getting them to come up with suggestions of other ways they can retain staff? What are the actual sort of things you try and then get that organization to implement that'll keep the staff?
It's a combination of both, so with anything, I tend to look at, okay, what's working, what has worked in the past. Let's keep it, let's amplify it. What's not working. You get different views from people as well when you're doing the assessments, the audits, the interviews, the conversations. But typically keep what's working and ramp it up. And then what's not working. And then I would have my own views on what I think should be done. Okay. And then it's up to the organization if they want to adopt that or not, Typically they do. Because I'm very observant, and I have a sixth sense. I don't know, intuition, whatever you want to call it. So, I because I take a keen interest in the people that I work with, people genuinely take on what I have to say, and they want to try it. So if it's a big organization, typically we can try something new on a pilot basis with one particular department that needs the help the most, or that would be open to it the most. And then see how that works, try it out, and let's expand.
Yeah, because it's the whole thing with any sort of change, you said it earlier in the chat, is the whole thing of everything takes time to do these implementations, and it's the consistency of doing actions or behavior changes from everyone within that department, from senior through to immediate team lead or manager or whatever, and that and generate that positive outcome you want of people staying. Because obviously you do coaching as well. Is it executive level coaching you do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do
typically you only senior executives and directors.
Perfect. Do you see that element of coaching coming further into an organization at all levels, or do you see it as something that would benefit a company if more people received coaching?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm an accredited coach, so I genuinely believe in it. It's part of all conversations that I have with clients, whether I'm formally coaching them or not, but having that style and that skill set of it's really helping people to extract information that's already there, by asking powerful questions that make sense for that conversation. I think it should be mandatory for all levels of leadership to have coaching skills, like formal coaching skills. So prior to me becoming a certified coach, I thought I was coaching. Until you do it, you're like, no, actually, you weren't coaching. People, if you're not a coach, like what what you said about for somebody who doesn't work in HR from the outside, it looks like it's a function and maybe costly and disruptive and so on. So same for coaching from the outside, it's a softer way to deal things. That's what it's seen when you're not coach, and then it's like, no, because my style is still the same in terms of how I talk. Like I'm quite direct and quite I suppose in terms of even my voice, right? The tone of my voice is quite for the right people, it's very grounding. And it helps them. Okay, she's got me. She gets me. For the right people. And then for some, I might be a bit scary, and that's okay. And that can take time to kind of for me to look less scary, and it's because I'm okay with having honest conversations with my clients, but giving them that space, But yeah, coaching is should be key, and sometimes it does come up as something that comes out of those audits when I'm looking at organizations, and it's typically around some members of the leadership team, or maybe all members of the leadership team, who find it hard to let go and let their team develop. They have problems. It's usually when my team has a problem, they don't listen to me. They don't do what I tell them to do. I've tried different approaches. It doesn't work. And then it's getting into those, me to coach the manager to understand. And then it's typically about having to let go. Well, what if you let go and let your team come up with ideas instead of you putting all that pressure on yourself to think for your 10 people that you're managing, let them think for themselves. You can set the parameters and let them, think for themselves. That's going to develop the right people. You're going to see a lot more, and you're going to reduce your own stress levels as well. So that, the coaching skills, I would almost train managers on how they can do that. And through trying it a few times, just like 2-3 times, they see a big difference, because there is a big difference. If I don't have to think for everyone, then but I'm still the boss, so
but I think I'm sort of reflecting back on times, as I say, in my previous employment, and in some ways there's this is just my experience, so I can't obviously label every organization, but to me, it's a little bit of the cliche of sort of like the annual sort of performance review and those sorts of conversations. And in its worst case scenario, it's just a tick box exercise. It's, where's your rating here? Where's your rating there? And just so it can be signed off and sent off. And we've both fulfilled the function of what we need to do in this moment in time, versus, you say, having a real, genuine conversation. Because the thing is with my experience with being coached and then coaching others, as you said, the surface level, I think one of the phrases used earlier, that's not the issue. It's not, and it's being comfortable of being able to receive that conversation. It could be something completely different, but I think there's an element of, once I say, missing a bit of a trick, in a sense of not having these conversations with the employees. Because if you had that real, from a team leader or management level with an employee, that sort of coaching question, and got it out of your employee, well, what do you really want out of this? Because you might find those real keen as mustard people we spoke about earlier, the ones who are real, want to get there. And you'll have some other people who kind of like, I just want to come in and do the job. It's not to say one is right or wrong or better than the other, but it's kind of like, okay, well, in that person, I know what I need to put in. And in this person, I know. It gives you so much more data points, so much more information, and know where you're, versus the expectation that everyone is going to do everything the same.
Yes.
I think that's where we're missing a trick.
My way. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Why aren't you doing it? Because this is the way, versus, well, if you found out more about what makes that person tick effectively in this role, you kind of then, it's the kind of like you said earlier, like the honest conversation, the BS, the no BS. What are you trying to get out of this role? What are we trying to get a role? Is it the right place? Is it, we're missing it at that detail level, I feel.
Yeah, and I think even for the managers or directors themselves need to know, well, what ticks for me,
Yeah.
right? We're talking about, so they need to get that self-awareness and say, okay, what's important to me? What do I want from this? I think a lot for the example that I use where managers can be very, they find it hard to delegate or to let go and have that sense of control. It's usually because they're trying too hard to prove themselves to the organization. Or
Yeah.
there's an insecurity there that if I don't do it, if I can't show my team that I'm the best here because I'm in this position, then what are they going to think of me? What's my boss going to think of me? What are my peers going to think of me? What are my staff going to think of me? So there's a lot of that, and you actually gain more respect by bringing in those coaching skills and letting the team think for themselves a little bit. Some people will need a bit more help than others. It's magical. My little niece uses that word, magic, which is, I think coaching is magical once you do it. It just takes away a lot of the stress, unnecessary stress that we carry unconsciously.
Yeah, yeah, because I think you said it well earlier as well, when the assumption from the outside, people who haven't experienced coaching, thinking it's a soft sort of this sort of, oh, we're just this, it's this lovely thing. But you say it's like there's an element of, depending on the coach, there might be a softness to it, but there's a cut through thing of this. It's like, no, we're going to be asking you a question that you kind of have to answer, and it's an uncomfortable place. It's like, depending on obviously the person who's asking, the style or whatever the way the question's asked. But it's the thing is where I think where it works is kind of like, but this is the question that you're avoiding. So this is where we need to actually go into more. That's it. I mean, if someone who's a really skilled coach will kind of go, okay, no, you can really talk well about this, etc. Not questioning that, but what are you not, challenging? What are you not sort of going into? It's finding those areas as well. And but as you say, creating it a safe space that, say it. Let's get it out there, because you say once you do verbalize it, it is a quite a liberating feeling to get it
Yeah,
out there.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
Um, I want to, because go back in when I ever have someone on the show who is gone out there on their own. You have been in your own business for, is it 3.5 years? You said now.
About
Obviously, there's
three,
the
yeah.
3 years. Yeah. So the reasons, obviously, for going into, you said there. What would you think of being now in coming up 3 years in the business? What have been from running it as a business? What would you think of your sort of top 3 or 5 sort of lessons for doing it yourself?
Right. I can't do everything myself.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
there are a lot of reasons for that. Like starting out, there's having the resources, the finances
Yeah,
to get people to help you.
sure.
You learn a lot by, you take on a lot of people that work for you, but they're contractors. So like they're sending you an invoice. They're not your employees, but you meet all sorts of people. And you get let down by a lot of people. And that's a big, um, it's a big thump to the chest or big bullet to the head when there's a lot of money involved, which has happened to me as well. It's very hard at the time, but you have to get past it. Like it's just part of business, and you'll meet good people and you'll meet not so good people. Um, and some people won't be maybe as honest with you, but they'll take your money. So there's a lot of that I've learned. But lucky for me, I've met some amazing people that have helped me in my business, and I just can't thank them enough. There's I never like the expression of people when they say I'm self-made.
Mm,
That's it really it irritates me because
yeah,
technically I'm self-made, but I cannot say that people haven't been there to support me. If I'm not talking about financially, I'm talking about just to listen to you talk and vent and just and help you in the business in whatever way. Like, you just can't. It's underestimated. Um, so that's it irritates me when somebody says I'm self-made.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's, to anything size, or or whatever size of whatever business that someone's getting involved in, and even someone who's in some ways like myself, in sort of a self-employed, a one-person type thing, there's still so many moving parts that you have there's that's reliant and needed from other people, whatever capacity it is. And I think it's a really, first time I've heard a really interesting point, in the sense of that you will be let down by other people as well. And it's the fact that, so it's that sort of almost, you need other people, but as you say, you're going to come across people that it's not going to work out, and you are going to experience that.
Just like in life.
100%. Yeah.
C'est la vie, c'est la business.
Yeah.
I don't know what the word is for business, but
yeah. But it kind of ties into that resilience word you said earlier as well, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely gets you. Yeah, it definitely ramps up the resilience very quickly. You have to, if you're going to make, you can give up. I mean, there were times that it's like, right, what am I doing here, right? So frustrating, blah blah blah, and then it's like you need to let that happen. You need to absorb all of that frustration as well. But it's only when you do that is you can get past and say, right, I'm on a mission here. This is my goal. This is my focus. This is what I want to do. I'm here to do this, so I'm going to do it. I've done this in the past so many times. I know my level of resilience, and I know my level of determination and drive, and nothing stops me when I'm on a mission. So I just need to really amplify that for myself. So I need to sit down and have talks with myself. I think that's most important, because no matter what people tell you, you need to believe in whatever it is for it to be true. Truly
100%. Absolutely. I'm gonna flip flop. There's another question back that I wanted to ask earlier. I'm always interested when the start of, say, when you're working with an organization or a client, whatever it is, and those first initial meetings you have, and the challenges or the problems they're presenting, to fast forward to when you're kind of ending that relationship, or finishing off, and you're seeing that same organization, group of people. I'm interested in just in the sense of your how you see them from a visual, from a hearing perspective, the first meeting to the last meeting. What's that difference in them? What's the transformation that you can see and notice in them?
There's a sense of peace.
It's a great word.
Yeah, there's a sense of peace and calmness, at the end of it overall. Some frustrations as well, because there changes have to be made. But it's not an overnight solution.
Sure.
So it's about upkeeping that peace and calmness and moving things along, has to be there as well. But yeah, and it's very heartwarming to hear some of the comments that people say. It's really humbling, to hear those.
Yeah, but it's a lovely word, because I generally didn't know what would the sort of the perspectives would be, the before and after sort of picture of that. But the way you
and saving money as well, obviously, and then saving money for organizations.
Sure, well. Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. But that's it. But isn't it? We have to face that. This is the thing as well. When we said about earlier about the whole thing of perception of coaching being soft, and it's kind of dismissing, and sort of not dismissing that, but sort of bursting that slight myth bubble, because especially when yourself pairing it with the sort of the HR world, and it's like, we have to accept the reality, as you said earlier, about business and employment. Is like, let's face it, we're in a society where money is required. So let's not forget that. There's one thing about mission, purpose, fulfillment, etc., all those things, not dismissing them. But alongside that, why can't we not have the success in relation to a profitable business, profitable employees, etc. It's bringing the two together. It's not about one over the other, or one, because if one does go above the other, then the business is likely to fail, or people like you will leave. So, but if you, my image when as soon as you said the words, "Oh, it's peaceful and calm," I immediately think of the before picture when you're meeting with someone is that sort of, oh my God, a stressed out manager, a stressed out CEO who's just like, and they're just seeing the revolving door of people coming in and out. As much as there may be more work to do when you're kind of leaving that client relationship, at least they kind of have a bit more knowledge and a bit more of way to go. And they might see the revolving door slowing a bit, not necessarily stopped, but they know they have the ideas, the tools, the reason, whatever it is, to keep implementing. So it's a lovely phrase, because if you're peaceful and calm and you're still either saving or making more money, then that's not a bad situation to be at the end of a relationship, is it?
No, not at all.
It surely is what you were kind of hoping for, because it wasn't, I'm really emphasizing, because it wasn't the words that I was expecting was peaceful and calm. And I think
What
that's
were
a
you expecting?
really, I was more like, was it going to be more the sort of almost jubilant type thing? Do you know what I mean? Oh, we've got this type thing, versus the sort of like, okay, we can. It's more like, oh, we can breathe a bit. So I think that's a
Mm-hmm.
really interesting perspective, because it's like, actually maybe it's less of a worry. Do you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Or we
Mm-hmm.
can get to that point where it's, because you want, I'm assuming most people want a calm working environment. Busy but calm is nice.
Yeah, and there's more flow, right? There's because
Yeah,
high turnover causes a lot of disruption, right? People in
yeah.
and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. It affects the team members.
Mm,
It affects the organization as a whole. So just having that calmness of less people, less revolving of people,
mm,
um, is where that kind of peace and calm comes in, right? For managers that have to go through this, even though they might be part of the reason for high turnover in that department, it's not easy for them to have people churning in and out of their department. It doesn't make them look good in front of the team
mm,
either.
yeah.
And it's taking up a lot of their time in training person. And then at the back of their mind, they're like, oh, I don't know how long they're going to stay because the last one didn't last that long. So the investment
Mm,
put into that training is the emotions, they're kind of, they get detached over time. Um,
yeah.
and it's, yeah. And, one other thing I want to say is, retaining, an organization wants to retain its good people. And sometimes, sometimes people that no longer fit into the organization, maybe, yeah, there may be other things to look at for that reason as well. But that can be done in a very humane way, very
Mm,
dignified, to help them get to their next chapter in 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 a way that's going to help them. So there are different ways of doing the same thing.
yeah, absolutely. No, love it. Um, there's just a few questions I like to ask everyone who comes on the show, Rabia.
More
So
questions?
more, we're almost there. We're almost there. I promise you. Last three. So the first one, just because I have a fascination with them, I always like to ask: are there any quotes or phrases that are important to you?
Quotes or phrases? Well, there are a few. So let's look at one of these. I wouldn't say she's a celebrity, but famous person, Maya Angelou. Her quote
Yeah.
is, if you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude. Love that from a famous person. And then another
Yeah.
one is from a former manager of mine who is probably always going to be the best manager I've ever had. My favorite manager, his name is William Chu. He is general manager for a company I worked in when I lived in Vancouver, XR Packaging. He was absolutely amazing as a manager. He wasn't perfect. No one's perfect, but he was just like the best manager because he really. Oops, sorry, my headphone, my earpiece. He was really good at motivating people. So he just gave me that. I propelled. He said to me, "You are part of the senior leadership team." Now I'm hired to be part of the senior leadership team in HR, so I know that. Physically on paper I know it, but it was like almost when he said it. You are part of the senior leadership team, and this is your department, right? So you need to run this. You need to make a difference here. And it was the way he said it. It was the respect I had for him, but that just really took me off. One of his key phrases were, he was of Chinese descent. And his phrases was, he says, there's a proverb in Chinese. I don't know what that is in Chinese, but it means there are 99 ways to say the same thing. So that's really around, communicating, like the verbal aspect of the communication, which brings in the body language and tone as well. But there are 99 different ways of saying the same thing. So that was so helpful in terms of how you talk to others.
Yeah, no, love that. It kind of leads me into probably the next question, and I'm sure that gentleman's one of them, which is, who have been the biggest influences in your life?
From a professional, a professional perspective, he would be definitely one of the top ones. Other than that, my two grandmothers, who are not physically on this planet, but they've been, one of the biggest influences. On my mother's side more so than my dad's side, but both have. They've gone through a lot, and they were through and through strong women, strong leadership skills, very different. Talk about being self-made. I'd say they were probably self-made. They didn't have the opportunities, and it was the generation and cultural background and everything. They didn't have much going for them, like from a worldly perspective, but my God, did they make, so I'm partly who I am because of them, and then my mum and my sister, my brother, my dad there as well, and my two nieces, I'd say, they've probably taught me more about life, just seeing it through their eyes, just try to, I'm their free coach for life. So I get to do the cool things with them, and hopefully I'm the cool auntie.
Yeah, I love it. No, I love it. I say it's been absolutely fabulous to chat to you. I have my final question for you,
Great.
Which is, what's important for your future?
For my future, my nieces are the daughters that I never had. They really are, So I really, one of my missions in life is to help them make their lives easier. There's plenty of pressures from life. One is a teenager, one is 10. She's going to be a teenager soon. And, I still see them as the little babies, the first time I saw them. But it's the teenager, I suppose. There's the teenage years, and now the phones, or whatever the next word is for phones and social media and all this stuff. The peer pressure, the societal pressures. I just I really want to. I really want to leave a legacy behind for my nieces. Just like my grandmothers, how I still talk about them,
I love that,
the impact they've had. Yes, that's the legacy I want to leave. That's what I want to leave behind for my nieces, and for anyone, but more so for my nieces. I want them to remember me as now while I'm here in this life, but even after, I just want them to. I want to be the person that's made a big impact on their life.
Love it. It's been absolutely fabulous to chat to you. I do thank you for coming on the show. I want to make sure people
thank you so much.
Continue to absolutely follow you and connect with you and learn more about what you do. We will make sure any of the links, online links, are in the show notes. But if you would like to give a shout out now where people can follow and connect with you online.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm very active there. Feel free to connect with me or follow me there. And my website is leadershipandhr.com and with an A&D.
Lovely stuff. And we'll say all those links are going to be in the show notes for anyone who wants to contact and follow and learn about more what Rabia does on her website. Thank you so much again for chatting to me today.
Thanks a million, James. Lovely to meet you, and thank you so much for having me here. Enjoy it.
Thanks for listening to What's Important to You. If you enjoyed this episode, follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if it resonated, share it with someone who might need it too. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment or ask a question, and let's keep the conversation going. I'm James Dean, and I'll be back soon with another real conversation to help you reconnect with what truly matters. Until then, take care and stay curious.